upon our beloved Prophet Muhammad, his family, his companions, and all those who call to his way to the Day of Judgment. My beloved brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, it is a great privilege again to be with you here tonight. And I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would accept your prayers and your fasting and your sadaqah and all of your striving in these very difficult times. These are ayam al-dhulm. These are days of oppression, where oppression is growing in the land. And oppression is something which is mentioned many times in the book of Allah Azza wa Jal. It is even connected with dhulumat, as the Prophet ﷺ said that dhulm, that oppression would be like dark clouds, it would be darkness on the day of resurrection. And in Surah Al-An'am, verse 21, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, وَمَنْ أَظْلَمُ مِمَّنْ افترى عَلَى اللَّهِ كَذِبًا أَوْ كَذَّبَ بِآيَاتِهِ إِنَّهُ لَا يُفْلِحُ الظَّالِمُونَ. And who is more unjust than he who makes a lie, who invents a lie against Allah and denies his revelation? Surely the wrongdoers will never be successful. And so in this particular verse, it is not just dhulm, but Allah said, وَمَنْ أَظْلَمُ, who is more oppressive, who is more unjust. In other words, one of the worst forms of oppression is the one who would invent a lie on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the second quality is that the person also denies the revelation, denies the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is considered to be an extreme form of oppression, and it is something which will never help that individual to be successful in the hereafter. And this is so important for us today as Muslims, that we are striving to better our lives and striving to hang on to our deen in the face of oppression, which is going on in many parts of society. But the word dhulm itself, there is dhulm, there is oppression that is on the outside. There is oppression which can happen, political oppression. A king sends his forces against you. Somebody is a tyrant. That's a form of dhulm. There is dhulm that can happen on a lower level. The person raises the prices in the marketplace. A person is abusing another individual. But one of the most dangerous forms of dhulm is internal dhulm. And that is when we oppress ourselves. Because that is the one that is not so clear. And that is the one that can harm the individual from the inside and cause a massive confusion. So tonight we want to look at something of the situation that we are actually in reality, al-waqi', and to see what solutions the great ulama have brought to us to help us out of this situation. Last weekend, I was traveling in England, in the UK, and traveling there from the city of London to Manchester. And there we had a major program to raise funds for the struggle against Ebola. Because quiet as it's kept, Ebola is still killing people in the western part of Africa. And quiet as it's also kept in the country of Guinea and Sierra Leone, that 75% of the people are actually Muslims. And so this is one of the forgotten areas of oppression and suffering that is going on, and we should be aware of what is happening to our brothers and sisters in all different parts of the world. And so in traveling there to Manchester, we went into the Midlands, the middle part of England, and we passed through a city called Birmingham. And Birmingham is the second largest city in the UK. It is a very famous industrial city, and it has a population, a Christian population, of about 494,358. It has Hindus, Jews, atheists, all types of people as well. Muslims are very strong in Birmingham. There's about 234,411 Muslims in the city of Birmingham. They make up about 22%. But as you travel through Birmingham, it is a typical Midland city in the UK. It's a quiet city compared to what we are used to in the hustle and bustle in North America. The general atmosphere is a calm type of atmosphere. And there are all types of individuals who are living in that city. As we passed through Birmingham, I reflected on the words of a man named Steve Emerson. And Steve Emerson is considered to be one of the leading experts on extremist Muslims in the West. He is the one that when something happens, the CNN and many of the people, the BBC, if it happens in North America, he's one of the people who will come on to talk about extremist Muslims and what is happening on the ground. And Steve Emerson said in a recent discussion on the Fox News, he said that Birmingham is a completely Islamic city. It's totally controlled by the Muslims. It's a no-go area for non-Muslims. If you're non-Muslim, you can't get in. And then he also said that in London, there are no-go zones. There are sections of London where the Muslim religious police beat people who do not dress in Islamic clothing. Now, in America, when he said this, because the population is dumbed down, most people don't even know where Birmingham is. So they listened to him and they believed it. But there in Europe, especially in the UK, it was a shock. It was a shock for the people. And they reacted to this. Even they were disgusted by it. They said the Prime Minister choked on his porridge when he heard this thing was actually being said. He couldn't believe it, that a person could actually say something like this. When Birmingham is majority non-Muslim, is the second largest city in their country, right? It's like saying that Montreal, is a no-go zone. No non-Muslims are allowed into Montreal. Or say Toronto now, and if you go to parts of Toronto, they'll beat you if you don't wear Islamic clothing. Something ridiculous like this. But this was Stephen Emerson. He is the same person who in 1995, when the FBI building in Oklahoma City was blown up, and nobody knew who brought down this huge building, Stephen Emerson came on television and he said, it has Middle Eastern prints all over this. In other words, it's somebody from the Middle East. There's Muslims who did this. And that was the prevailing thought. And there were actually women, Muslim women who were attacked in the United States, masjids that were vandalized when this went on, until they found out that the perpetrator of the act was a man named Timothy McVeigh, who was a European Christian American, right-wing individual, and he was the one who carried it out. But Stephen Emerson continued to rise. This time he was caught, and so he had to make a public apology on the Fox News, and Fox News had to apologize to the world because of what they have said. The shahid here is, this is only part of what is going on. This is only part of the lies that are being propagated against Islam, against Muslims. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in this verse that this is the most unjust, this is the most oppressive person, one who will lie on Allah Azza wa Jal, and one who would forge a lie or who would not accept the signs of Allah Azza wa Jal. The Islamophobes, there is a group of them. They are funded by major corporations. And their job is to spread information against Islam, to put out a negative image about Muslims, and to make the atmosphere so bad that people will be afraid to accept Islam. One of their leaders in Europe, whose name was Anders Breivik, and it was in July of 2011 that Anders who's a Norwegian man, he decided to attack. And he blew up a building downtown, a government building in Oslo, Norway. He killed 8 people. And then he rode on a boat to an island, Utoyo Island, off the coast of Oslo. And there was a big youth conference, and some of the brightest young people in Norway had gathered together, the people who would be the future leaders of the country. And so he went there with automatic weapons and ammunition, and he began to gun down the people like you gun down animals. He succeeded in killing 68 people. He wounded scores of people physically and psychologically, and he was finally captured. He wasn't gunned down like you saw in France, right? He was not gunned down and there's no talking. He's alive. He's alive now in jail, and he's doing a protest now because in his cell, his internet is not strong enough. So he wants a wider band of internet because he can't get a lot of the programs that he wants to get. This is a double standard that is going on. This is what we are facing now on the ground. He wrote 1,500-page manifesto, and he called it a European Declaration of Independence. That's what he called it. And he ranted and he raged inside of this. And he called for the deportation of all Muslims from Europe. The final solution is to put all of the Muslims on boats and planes and send them out of Europe, something similar to the Spanish Inquisition that happened in Spain in the time when Muslims were in Al-Andalus and were very powerful and very productive in Al-Andalus. He whipped up the fear. Some of his pundits, the people he gets his information, he mentions Robert Spencer, Pam Gellers. You know, he mentions many of the big Islamophobes by name. But none of them had to apologize. He said openly he was a Christian, but no Christian had to apologize. Nobody had to make a demonstration or write an article and show sympathy because of what he did, because it was clear that he is a person who is out of his mind and done a criminal action. But this is a double standard that is happening now, and this is what we are facing on the ground. And the main tool that is being used for propaganda is that they are afraid of Shari'a. They are afraid of Islamic law being implemented in Western countries. And when we look at the maqasid al-shara, when we actually look at the objectives of Sharia itself, from our own perspective, and we understand that we as living in minorities, nobody's talking about establishing an Islamic state, but Sharia actually applies to everything that we do. The fact that we made Salat al-Isha at the time we made it, and we did 4 rakats, that's Sharia. The fact that you made wudu in a certain way, that you fast in a certain way, this is all part of our Islamic guidance and lifestyle. And the 2 key parts of the maqasid al-shara, and this is a subject they call usul al-fiqh, the 2 key parts or objectives is rahmah and huda. It is mercy and guidance. So the essence of the establishment of Islam in our own lives and in society itself is mercy. It's for mercy on the environment, mercy on the society, and guidance. It is guidance for the people. It's to set up a type of society where guidance is part of the general lifestyle. And when we look at usul al-fiqh itself, when we look at the maqasid of Sharia, we find that the basic objectives is to safeguard the well-being of people. And there are 5 key areas for the safeguarding of the well-being of people. It is the deen, it is an-nafs, al-aql, an-nasl, wal-mal. These are the 5 areas. And when we study usul al-fiqh, and this is something which is a really important subject for us to get into, those into Islamic studies, we study these in details. And that is the deen, of course, which is the religion itself, our spirituality, our faith. Secondly, a nafs, and that is life, the preservation of life, of human life. The third is aql, which is the preservation of intellect, that the intellect of individuals, the minds of people need to be preserved. The third is an-nasl, and that is posterity, that is the children and the generations that are to come need to be safeguarded and protected. And finally, al-mal, and that is wealth. So these are the 5 key areas. And as the great scholars have shown us, that if we are implementing this, then this is what is called maslahah. The implementation of this, the safeguarding of these 5 areas is a maslahah, that's the benefit. It is the benefit of being a Muslim in a Muslim society. And if they are corrupted, then that is called mafsada. That's a corruption. And to struggle against the corruption is actually part of our faith. So in looking at the preservation of faith, and if you think about the society itself, and what they are trying to propagate about Islamic society, and this is important for all of us to know, because some people might even ask you, what is this Sharia thing? What is this Islam that you want to bring here? Do you want to chop everybody's head off? You want to cut off their hands? What is it that you want to do? Number one, the intention is to preserve and safeguard faith, the oneness of the Creator. Also to help human beings to understand that there is an akhirah, there is a next life. This life is not the only life. That we are in a transition period, moving to the next world, which is the real life. Because this world is 50 years old, or 60 years, or maybe some of us might live to be 100 years. But the next life is eternal, and Allah said, "Khalidina fiha abadan." They will live in the next life forever. So if you divide eternity by 100, then this life is 0. It's actually 0. It's a deception if we think that this is the only life. So the Islamic society then connects our lifestyle with the hereafter. It keeps us remembering the Creator. And so the Islamic society establishes prayer. It establishes fasting. It establishes the giving of sadaqah and zakat to help the poor and the needy. It keeps the society thinking about this. It takes care of those who have died. It constantly reminds us of the next life. And by doing this, it is preserving us. It is helping us, because there is other things which try to keep us away. And if you see the trends now coming into Western society, unfortunately, and it's our society as well, because really to a certain extent, there's really no East and no West anymore. Because if you go to many of the Muslim countries, you'll find more Westernism than you find here. So there is no East and no West. But if we look at the secular societies, then we will see what is happening. The society is moving people away from religion. So now, if you take a secular course, if you follow the thought pattern generally propagated in the society here, it is gearing people towards atheism. There are more people becoming atheists today than any other way of life. And the Christian church is suffering from this as well. They're locking down, selling churches. So people are being steered away, taken away from the belief in the Creator, taken away from this type of lifestyle, the belief in the hereafter, right? The whole world is right now. It's right now, today. Get it now. Make as much money as you can. Happiness, the akhirah, the real happiness is when you have 2 cars and you have a villa, you have some land up north, right? You can fly whenever you want. That's supposed to be the real happiness, right? So the society is steering people away from the belief in the Creator. And that is the reason why Islam represents a challenge to the atheists, to those who would steer people away from religion. And that is the reason why there are some people who are afraid of Islam. Not because of violence being done to them, but because they're trying to steer people away from religion. Point number 2 is the preservation of aql, of intellect. So within the Islamic society, a proper educational system is set up so that the student not only learns to read and write and to count and to learn forms of math and science, but they also have a religious education. In other words, the secular and the sacred is tied together. So in that sense, when you study in a proper Islamic school, your math and your science brings you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How could there be a world like this? How could there be gravity? How could there be immune systems in our body that is fighting away disease while we sleep without a creator? How could there be instinct where animals fly to other parts of the world and return back here to the same tree? Right, with our system set up without a creator. It couldn't happen by chance. So the more you study biology, the more you study chemistry, and all of these subjects, is the more, within an Islamic context, that you come closer to Allah Azza wa Jal. So within this society, information is brought in, libraries are set up, reading is encouraged, and that is one of the qualities of the Muslims. Everywhere Islam went, there were huge libraries. So reading is encouraged. Also, the freedom of thought, that people can question things. And they used to come to the Prophet ﷺ all the time. That's why you see the Quran in many places say, Yas'alunaka anil anfal. Yas'alunaka anil ahilla. They are asking you about the ghanima or the booty. They're asking you about the hilals. They ask you about this. They ask you about that. So it is a good thing to ask. And there's nothing wrong with thinking. And so contrary to what people say today, right, Muslims have freedom of thought. But our thinking, all freedom of thought has limits. In every civilized society, there's a limit, right? And this is the double standard. And as I was traveling in London and these areas, it's tense. There's tension in Europe because of what happened in France. But Muslims are taking a stand now to bring out this contradiction. Because if you attack a person of color, if you attack a person of African origin or a native person, then this attack can be called racism if you insult them. If you insult a Jewish person or attack them, it's called anti-Semitism. If you insult a woman, they say like sexism. But if you insult the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, they say it's freedom of speech. You see the contradiction in that? They call it freedom of speech, right? But yet for the other individuals and other, limits, right, they stop. Especially anti-Semitism. Right? You go to jail if you do that. And so this is a contradiction. And if we are living in a truly democratic, truly free society that has limits in it, then the limit must be for all people and not just certain types of people. So the third area is the protection of the posterity or the protection of a nasl. Your future, your family that will come. And that is by giving a moral upbringing. So morality is in the society. And the young people will learn a moral upbringing. Their heroes will be righteous, pious people. They will strive in order to be better people. One strives against another to do righteous deeds. What is happening in this society, wal-iyadhu billah, and there are many people who are not Muslims who are against this as well, they are pushing the younger generation toward criminality. The heroes are gangsters, hustlers, thieves, bank robbers. Most of the heroes that they put on the programs the young people are watching is what they call an anti-hero. An anti-hero is a good guy. He saves the day, but there's something wrong with him, right? He's drinking. He divorced from his wife. There's something wrong with him, right? That's what they call anti-hero. So what the anti-hero does is it presents an image to the youth. This is a hero, but at the same time, he's evil. He's evil and he's good. So he can switch to the evil. So they make the evil seem interesting. And sometimes the evil person in the movie or in the book or whatever in the story is actually more exciting than the good person. The good person is like an idiot. But the evil person is intelligent. He dresses well. You see, they set it up like this. So they push the younger generation towards evil, towards illegal sexual relationships, toward the drinking alcohol and taking drugs, right? Gambling. What comes out of this is a destruction of the society. Sexually transmitted diseases on the rise. Alcoholism on the rise. Taking drugs on the rise. Unwanted pregnancy on the rise. People involved in gambling. Gambling is a disease. It's a sickness of the mind. And they start gambling and gambling and gambling, continue to gamble. And so the Islamic society, the intent or the maqsad, the objective of the Sharia is to provide a society where there is a moral upbringing, where the younger generation actually can be fulfilled as people in a positive way. Here they make fulfillment, you got to be involved in sexuality or violence. Otherwise it's not fulfilled. Especially on Friday night, Saturday night. Okay, and then Sunday you say, oh God, forgive me, and you go back to work on Monday. That's like the lifestyle that they set up, you see? So the Islamic society the intent is to be a healthy environment, right? We're not angels, there'll be things wrong, but the main thrust of society is to keep you away from the gambling, drinking alcohol, committing crimes, right? Smoking drugs, fornicating and committing adultery. You know, it pushes you away from it, as opposed to what is happening today where we're being pushed towards it. So for those people who are involved in the sale of alcohol or gambling casinos or pornography, which is a big business, they have a problem with us because we're going to put them out of business, right? The more people accept Islam is the less people who would be involved in pornography, drinking alcohol, taking illegal drugs, going to casinos, right? So that's a problem for them. And so reaction is coming. You see, it's a reaction that comes out of them. The next issue, the fifth objective within what is being safeguarded by the Sharia is wealth. And the Sharia, is protecting wealth through education, right? How do we use our wealth? And also by providing a means of giving your wealth. And so we set up a system of zakat, where people can give their wealth to the Baitul Mal. They give it to a treasury house, right? And then that is distributed to the poor, right? And we encourage each other. We strive against each other to try to give more. And by doing this, it actually preserves our wealth. Also, an Islamic system would not have interest and usury in the banks. The bank would not be exploiting people, but the bank would be cooperative, a cooperative bank. So the banker is working with the people who are investing their money in it. You see, so the banking system, the money system, actually is helping the poorer people in the society as opposed to taking away from them. Corporations, multinational corporations dominating the whole society would not be allowed. Private property would be allowed. So these are the basic constructs. And for the individuals, skills are being taught. Employment is there. So this is a positive thing. Right? This is a very positive thing. But the haters of the deen, the haters of Islam, the Islamophobes, and this is a minority of people actually, but they affect the majority. The haters would love to stop this. And now they are in a frenzy. It's like a feeding frenzy. They're going crazy to try to find anything wrong, which really, what it means is, and we used to say before those people struggling against oppression in society, we used to say, if you're under attack, that means you're doing something right. It means you must be doing something right. And so Muslims, although we ourselves are so busy fighting each other, right? So busy in confusions, right? Don't necessarily have the vision of this, but somebody has the vision of it. They would love to put out the light of Allah. But Allah Azza wa Jal gives us hope. We have nothing to fear. Because even though now they speak against us, they write against us, they have the internet, they have all types of media, Allah Azza wa Jal tells us in Surah As-Saf, يُرِيدُونَ لِيُطْفِيُوا نُورَ اللَّهِ بِأَفْوَاهِهِمْ وَاللَّهُ مُتِمُّ نُورِهِ وَلَوْ كَرِهَ الْكَافِرُونَ. That they intend to put out the light of Allah with their mouths. See it? With their mouths. بِأَفْوَاهِهِمْ. But Allah will complete His light, even though the disbelievers hate this. It's going to be completed anyway, whether they like it or not. And so we have nothing to be afraid of. What we do have to be worried about is ourselves. Are we the ones who actually represent Islam? Are we the ones who are taking this blessing? Or are we turning it against ourselves? And this is where we need to go to our guidance. Because as was read in Isha prayer tonight, in Surah Al-Ra'd, that Allah said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. Allah will not change the condition of a people until they change that which is in themselves. And so the internal change. And I want to leave you with a few points tonight that we can think about, and maybe in the future we can study them in more depth. These are some of the writings of a great scholar who I studied, who lived in the Sahara Desert. He lived in the Great Sahara. And his name was Shaykh Uthman ibn Fudi, rahimahullah. And he lived in the Sahara Desert. His teacher was named Sheikh Jibril ibn Umar, rahimahullah. And he was of the people called Tawariq. The Tawariq people, you see the men cover their face in the veil, with a veil in the Sahara Desert, right? So he was Tawariq. And he went to Mecca, Jibril ibn Umar, and he studied under a man by the name of Sheikh Muhammad Hayat al-Sindi, rahimahullah, was a great scholar in Medina. And this person's students, from amongst his students, one of his students was known as Sheikh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab of Arabia. Another is Shah Waliullah ad-Dahlawi from India. There was also the Zabidi clan of the Zabidi people of Yemen. Many great scholars studied under him during this time period, and they came back to their people with the revivalist teachings. Revivalism. How to revive Islam and how to get the people away from the corruptions, right, that set in when Islam is not practiced. And so Sheikh Jibril, rahimahullah, he studied there in Medina in these same circles, other people went back to their countries. He went back to the Sahara. And his best student was Sheikh Uthman Danfodio, or Ibn Fudi, rahimahullah, of Sokoto. He was a Fulani man of the Fula of West Africa who lived in the savannah in the desert. And he was a great scholar who influenced hundreds and thousands of people, who through his teachings, they opened up 250,000 square kilometers. And they governed it by Sharia until the coming of the British. They governed it for 100 years under Sharia. And so what is so beautiful about these teachings is that many of our scholars, you know, they are a reflection of the Prophet ﷺ, who is a reflection from Allah Azza wa Jal. It's like the light is like reflecting from them. And they will give us information that we can actually use today, because we need some practical solutions. Like we're hearing all these things that are wrong, but what can you and I do to make a change? And what can we teach the younger generation to purge out of themselves, that they can be the type of leadership that we need? Our leaders are dying now. The kings are going, the dynasties are going, the socialist committees are falling apart. Right? The leadership is going down, but what's going to replace the leadership? Is it going to be more of the same? Or will it be a new type of leadership? The new leadership doesn't come out from the clouds. There's nobody coming down out of the sky. And if you're waiting for the Mahdi to come, they were waiting for him also 1,000 years ago. They said he was almost there. Our leadership, our intention has to be from the younger generation to develop this type of leadership. So I want to just briefly discuss with you 10 key points brought to us by Shaykh Uthman rahimahullah. These are practical issues to change ourself, our hearts, right? Because the heart, the inner part of the individual, has a disease. There's a disease amongst us. And I'm sorry to say this, because in many parts of the Muslim world, it's confusion on the ground. I spoke to a Muslim brother who came back from a Muslim country. I'm not going to say which one it is. But he came back from a Muslim country and he said there was so much confusion in his country. When he came to Canada, he almost went on the ground and made sajda and kissed the ground. Because he's back in Canada now. Because it's so peaceful. Compared to the fawda, the chaos that he experienced within his own land. So something's got to change within ourselves. It should be the opposite, right? It's supposed to be the opposite. Number one, hasad. To purge jealousy out of our hearts. Jealousy is a serious thing. And hasad is when you are jealous of somebody else. You're jealous of material things that they have. He has a new car, or they build a new masjid. She has a new baby, and they're jealous. And hasad actually destroys the person who has it more than the other person. But it can affect the other individual as well. But the Prophet ﷺ said, Iyakum wal hasad, fa innal hasada yakul hasanati, kama ta'kul an-nar al-hatab. Beware of jealousy, it will eat up your good deeds like a fire eats up firewood. You fast, you give zakat, go to Hajj, and hasad burns it up. Destroys your good deeds. Hasad is a lot of our problem, you know. And you'll see many divisions between people and many problems up into our societies itself. You see groups struggling for power. Individuals fighting each other. Why? Jealousy? Because he thinks that because he has more money than him, so he's angry, right? He's angry about this. But that money is not a blessing. Because many of our countries, when the wealth hit them, they lost their Islam. They became weaklings after the wealth hit them. Number two, of the diseases of the heart, some areas that we need to work on and think about, the fear of poverty. The fear of poverty. When people are afraid of not having material things, it can cause people to do strange things. Very strange things. Poverty. It can destroy the individual. And Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, in one a case, he said that, you know, that this is almost like kufr. It's almost like disbelief. And it's not poverty of the body, because the Prophet ﷺ did not have a lot of materials. He had very few things, lived a very simple life. It's really poverty of the mind and the heart, right? That's really what it is. But this society makes us feel you have to have materials. You have to have money in the bank. That's why they come to you and they say, Fulan Ali, would you like to have an insurance policy? Because you need an insurance policy, right? You need insurance for this and insurance for that. Insurance when you're going to die. Insurance for this. You got to have the money. So you keep thinking, if I don't have all this money, right? If I'm poor, I can't be successful. Whereas Ar-Raziq, the real provider, is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if we have tawakkul ala Allah, if we really depend upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is the cure for the fear of poverty. It is to really depend upon Allah Azza wa Jal, and to tie our camel at the same time, and to do the things that we have to do in order to survive. Number 3, this is great teachings now. It's a person living in the desert region, but it's like he's talking to us. What is one of the diseases facing us? It is keeping more wealth than is necessary. You have more wealth than is necessary. Accumulated wealth. It's a danger. It's a disease. Yes, we earn wealth, and we try to earn wealth, have a family, support ourselves, be comfortable, that's fine. But when it gets above, it starts accumulating. We're not paying zakat, and when it starts accumulating too much, it's a danger. It's possible to have it, but you have to constantly be giving sadaqah, giving zakat. If you start to love that wealth, then you're in danger. Number 4, holding suspicion against the Muslims. Su'adhan. And this is really serious thing. Suspecting other people. Because su'adhan many times divides us up when we don't even have to be divided. But you'll see many people, they'll meet you and they, Assalamu alaikum, brother, which country do you come from? Because they want to judge you, right? You're Egyptian. You're Pakistani. You're this, you're that, right? So they want to judge you. Or they start looking at your salat. What madhab is he? What movement is he in? And then they'll look at that person. He didn't even say anything. They judged him already. He's a fasiq. They already judged him before he opened his mouth. So su'adhan, suspicion, is a terrible thing. It's a disease, and it's part of the problem that the shaitan, wal iyadhu billah, is using against us to break up families, to break up masjids, communities, and ultimately nations. Number 5. This is a very interesting point. One of the problems, one of the diseases, one of the dangers to the heart is being involved in testing common Muslims in theological questions. You go to common Muslims, you go to the average people, and you get involved in theological debates, aqidah debates. So you go to the person and you say to him, where is Allah? So maybe he's just a simple person. He doesn't know Allah is everywhere. Astaghfirullah. You're in a state of kufr. Don't pray behind him. Okay? Testing the person. Right? Instead of saying, okay, maybe he doesn't know, and teach him that Allah Azza wa Jalla is above 7 heavens, right? He's here with his knowledge and power, but you can't say Allah is with us. Is he in my pocket? Right? Is he in the washroom? Wal iyadhu billah, hasha lillah. Not possible, right? So teach that person instead of getting into these theological debates. And in the area of Sheikh Uthman, in the desert, they had this Aqidah As-Sanusiyah, the Sanusi Aqidah. It was a book of Aqidah, and they used to debate with this Aqidah book and get into all types of fighting and struggling. When that debate should be for the ulama themselves, for those who are knowledgeable, because they know how to talk to each other and they know how to differ in opinions, right? If somebody differs with you, how do you deal with that person? There's a adab, there's a mannerism. The average person will differ and they say, I hate him. I don't want anything with that person. I might not even come to janazah. That's the level it can reach. Number 6, that is obstinacy or stubbornness in supporting your own opinion. This is a serious point, that people will not change their opinion. They will not recognize that sometimes even within Sharia, even within Islam, there's more than one way to do something. But they think it's only my way or the highway. And this is the only way to pray. I was praying one time in a country, won't say which one it is, and I said, well, Darlene, the Imam was beautiful. And he read the Quran so beautiful, and he said, well, Darlene, and I said, Ameen. I was the only person in the masjid. And they finished their salat, and they said, where is that shaitan? Like, where is he? Right? And they came to me, and I said, get Bukhari hadith. And they got Bukhari, and I showed them how the Sahaba said Ameen so loud, it shook the building. And they said, we didn't know this. Like, we didn't know this. Because we were only taught one way, right? But when a person is obstinate, and they will not change their opinion, this is a dangerous thing. 1 year, this Hilal confusion that comes here in Ramadan, right? 1 year, we were in this situation, and we went outside, and we saw the Hilal. It was there. And we ran back in the masjid, and we said to the brother, come outside. He said no. The calculation said no. And he refused to go outside and see the Hilal. It was there. But his calculation said no. And that was his position, and he wasn't going to change his position. See? This is what's causing division amongst us. We're not flexible, and we are stubborn and ignorant like a donkey. Number 7, anger, kathratul ghadab, anger and uncontrolled emotion. This is an important issue right now because we're angry, right? We are angry at these cartoons. We are angry at people. They're trying to get us. They know what to do to make us mad. So they want to get us angry to do things out of control so we don't represent Islam. Whereas the Sharia itself represents protection of life. It's order. It's civil. But they want us to appear to be uncivilized. Out of order, you see? So this anger and uncontrolled emotions is a very serious issue. A man came to the Prophet ﷺ and said, give me advice. The Prophet said, La taghdab. Just don't get angry. You control your anger. And this is a time where we need to control our anger and realize that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he is protected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They can say what they want to say, right? They cannot harm him. They cannot harm his name, and they cannot harm Islam. They're only harming themselves, right? Number 8, greed and ambition. Being greedy and ambition means you want more. You want a higher position. You keep struggling for material things. And this greed that starts to come into the individual. Number 9, haste. Doing things too quickly, especially when it is unnecessary. And the Prophet ﷺ said, Al-ajala min ash-shaytan, that haste is from the devil. And the only time that the scholars will allow haste is that if the salat comes in, then try to make it right away. As-salatu ala waqtiha. Then you can do it right away. Or if you have a zad wa rahila, you have the ability to make hajj, right? Then make your hajj. Don't wait till you're over 50 or 60 years old and you have arthritis and they take you around in a chair. Make the hajj. If you have a zad wa rahila and you can make it, then go and get your farad hajj out of the way, right? And number 10, excessive love of food and drink. It's an interesting point. Excessive love of food and drink. When the people love the food, love the drink, when their material, their shahwa, overcomes them, then it's easy to control them. And that's why Allah blesses us every year with Ramadan, right? That's what Ramadan is, training ground for us, where we learn to control ourselves. If we are fasting people and we can't get halal food at a certain shop, we can fast. We know how to fast. But if a person can't control their desires, and once that one desire is open, it opens up all the other desires, then that person finds himself in a state of confusion. Well, iyadu billah. And so, this is a challenging time to us. And we need to do something to improve ourselves, our families, our communities, so that the leadership, inshallah, and pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the right type of leadership to come up in the Muslim world. This is a time we are, in need of proper leaders. It's a major problem right across the board. And we pray that Allah Azza wa Jal would protect us. And, don't worry, let us not have fear, because they want to put out the light of Allah. They'll never put it out. They will never put it out as much as they can. It's like a dog who doesn't like the wind. He's blowing in the wind. So they can blow all they want, but they will never put out the strength of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or the light of Islam that is in this world and inshallah in our hearts. So I leave you with these thoughts. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I want to open up the floor for any immediate questions. If anybody has any immediate question, we won't spend a lot of time because we want people to be able to go. Does anybody have any immediate question that they want to ask about something? Okay, inshallah. Kullu aam wa antum bi khair. Ma'as salama fi aman Allah. Have a safe journey home. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.